deliberate or not, he does.
I don't think it's deliberate.
24 minutes left in this conversation, and it's been an interesting one, even as we come back. And I just wanted to push off that point, is that here we are launched into a different realm now. It's not possible that you had boiler situation in the country for 1.5 months. And then we come back, and now we're eating cake as though it didn't matter. We've rolled out the red carpet, and now we're focusing on something else. Cabinet dissolved, everybody brought back, advisors being appointed, issues have not been dealt with. So it's as though you have icing on the cake, but inside is a rotten mess. And surely the question must be asked at an external level and even at an internal level, that what on earth is going on? And what would happen in a situation where those issues are not dealt with? And isn't that kind of escapist behavior whereby, okay, here's this nice shiny thing, let's play with it over here, and it just happens to be in the form of Raila Odinga for AUC chairmanship? That's something to divert our attention from these other things that should be dealt with in the country. Dismas?
Well, in my view, the Gen Z set Kenya in a trajectory that is you cannot reverse. It's moving forward, and many lessons learned. And any politician who doesn't take into active consideration of those lessons will have himself to blame. For instance, public participation is no longer going to be ceremonial and mechanical. I remember during my very first days as a journalist, when a Minister of Finance was doing public participation, we would go to KICC, we are served with teas and coffees, and then the people come, they do their presentation in economic jargon, and they say that is public participation. It's no longer going to be the case. They must be proactive. And then any policy which is going to come up in Kenya has to be Mora-centric. This policy has to serve Mora. If it's not serving Mora, then that is going to be a chapter in history books. And also the judiciary has demonstrated that they pay their fidelity to the Kenyan constitution. You could be a powerful political personality, they're not going to be intimidated. They're going to have their decisional independence and the institutional independence. But you ask a very valid question. I may not be able to use the right terms that you say there is a cake, inside it could be rotten, but now there is an icing, and everybody is now saying Hail Mary. That you have Mr. Raila Odinga, you said it's a Rurasho, so he's got a beautiful wedding dress, he's on his way to Addis Ababa. But Mr. Raila Odinga expressed his interest long before the Gen Z demonstration. Maybe the Gen Z demonstration were a catalyst, or they invigorated his candidature. And from a purely practical perspective, because I don't have capacity for theory like Professor does, the principal responsibility of a head of state or a head of a nation is to create, number one, political stability, number two, economic stability, and security stability. So the president may do a number of things that are, to the naked eye, they appear to be obscene. Like, for instance, one may ask, what is the purpose of an election? If in Kenya you do an election and you're supposed to identify the winner. But if number two has got capacity to create any levels of instability, then as a head of state, it's incumbent on you to make sure that you play with the variables. But still, at the end of the day, as they say in the West, the elephant in the room is this little matter of employment and wealth creation. Because Mora back in the village goes to a farm every day to pick a tea or a coffee, but she does not feel the impact of that resource. So Mora wants to have the opportunity to have a disposable income that after toiling in her shamba the entire day, in the evening when she goes back home, she's not worried about paying fees, whether or not the kids are going to get help. Those are the basic things. What in the US they call kitchen table conversations. And that one is very urgent. And then an entirely related but a different aspect. You'll notice during the vetting process, and I don't know whether it's a deceit in the Kenyan political space, you notice a gentleman by the name Honorable Wycliffe Oparanya. Before he was nominated, he would say, the Hustler Fund is unacceptable. But as soon as he joins the administration, he said, wait a minute. Now that I'm seated inside here, Hustler Fund is an amazing product.
In fact, pay your loans.
Yeah. Or if you don't, I'll come for you. The MP for Alego, a gentleman by the name Honorable Atandi, says, wait a minute. Government is only bad wakati uko nje. Lakini ukiingia ndani, serikali ni mzuri sana.
Because you're part of it.
Yeah.
Because you become part of it.
Then another gentleman comes in called Honorable John Mbadi. He says, in fact, the finance bill, a part of one or two clauses, was amazing. But why did you vote against it? Or why did you not even participate in the voting process? He says, I was following instructions from my party leader. So the biggest challenge for Kenyans, and we'll seek the advice of CT Muga, is how do we immunize politics from this kind of disease? Because if you don't do that, and we are talking about people with massive political following, at the flick of their fingers, they can cause instability in the nation. In my view, that is the elephant in the room.
How should it be dealt with?
I think...
sorry, because I'm going to go off on something you said, that if that leadership vacuum is not sorted out, if you're just, connecting some threads here,
Yes.
if that leadership vacuum is not sorted out, forget about external leadership and what you'll do for the continent. That's great. Okay. But if the leadership vacuum is not sorted out, it seems like it's going to implode.
It is, because I actually was surprised when this... when you appoint the cabinet. I wouldn't have expected, for example, Paranya to go to finance. Because, there are some Kenyans with real knowledge, but a lot of people don't know. Paranya was the brain behind the vision. It went to that. And I think Paranya could have driven the finance ministry probably better. But in short, this is what I'm trying to say. I think the president got himself expert from ODM. He really did. If he can let them work. Because for me, the issue here, what is creating vacuum is this underperforming economy. You remember the only government, other than which served the people of Kenya, is actually the Nusu Mukate government. That government delivered. It delivered because it was a government of national unity. It had all the Kenyans there. But the more important, it had a lot of these people from Nyanza. These Kenyans, they think, they have serious commitment.
Ken, are you from Nyanza?
They are less.
Ken, are you from Nyanza?
No, they are less.
Please let the professor continue.
Yes.
Yes, he's speaking.
They are less transactional. They are less transactional. They are more transformational. Okay? Now, an infusion of these fellows in significant number into the government could very well become now the catalyst for changing the trajectory and move towards improved economy. So what we need to do is to watch now whether they will be allowed, the people now, the few who have come in, whether they will actually be allowed to execute the mandate of that department. Nusu Mukate government worked because of those fellows. Because we have a weakness from the mountain. From the mountain, we are fairly transactional. You can see when the devolution came, we assumed the mountain region, the Mount Kenya region will fly because there's the stock of the most educated people in this country. But it is the worst performing because we are transactional. We just like fattening our own pockets more than the country. So those fellows are more transformational, and the more of them we can have in the government, in my opinion.
Prof, there are two issues here. One, yes. I understand when I was still in school, there was a cabinet before the cabinet. And having said that, what I mean cabinet before cabinet is that there will be the real cabinet that will be meeting at 7 to 9. Then at 9, the other cabinet walks in, where the people you're talking about could be. So the president will still operate the way he's been operating. These people are just an addition. That's why you hope they'll be allowed to work. But there's an issue that emerged here yesterday, a potential fallout in this government. And someone said that if there's a fallout, Raila would do what he did in 1997, right? When he left with everyone else from KANU. So there will be
Why
potential.
don't we look at it as everyone left with him?
With him, but my question related to that is: do you foresee this government holding? Because having said what you're saying, there are two parties here: transactional and
the
transformative.
Yes.
So these are totally different ideologies
Completely.
under one roof.
Totally.
So I'd like that answer. And the other thing that was raised by CT that I just ventilate on it and you don't have to respond is the fact, why is there a hullabaloo about Raila's candidacy? Why is it that there's so much fuss about it? Because I'm looking back before Faki, there was a Dlamini Zuma, right? So Dlamini was replaced by Faki.
Yes.
Prime Minister, she was a minister in the husband's government, Minister for Women or something like that. Then comes the former Prime Minister of Chad, and then the former also Foreign Affairs Minister. Then here comes a candidate who has been running for president 5 times straight. Here comes a candidate who has been a prime minister. Faki was a prime minister for 2 years, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
Only 2 years. So perhaps that is the reason why there's a fuss. You are up here. Why do you want to come down here? Because the Council of Ministers is still ahead of you, just operating. But my question majorly is based on this, the fallout. Do you see this cabinet, do you see this government holding on to the end of 2027? That's for the two of you.
Yes, I'll let Muku answer that one.
Let me start with the last one. Can you appreciate that this picture that there is these high octane celebrations that Mr. Odinga is the talk of town about his position as the chairmanship? I look at it from 2 perspectives. For Mr. Raila Odinga, whether he talks or not, is a subject of national conversation. Whether he does anything, whether he moves, whether he's latent, whether he's kinetic, people will always have a conversation with him. I remember when I was in the newsroom, if Mr. Raila Odinga doesn't speak for a week, journalists will still call him.
And look for him to say
Where
something.
are you?
You're looking for headlines.
Mbona mzee umenyamaza? Then he'll say, maybe I'm in a vacation in Italy. Then the page 1 story would be, Raila takes a vacation. Yeah, because he's a very solid guy. In fact, some newsrooms that I'll not mention, identified Mr. Raila as a revenue stream. If you want to sell your newspaper
Headlines.
or you want to sell your content, Raila must be in the headline. And he's largely credited for having the regional editions. There are some headlines that if you put them in Kisumu, by the time the newspaper lands, it's already sold out. So they started having those kind of things. So that is why he's referred to as Enigma, Agwambo, all those kind of things. And then we have never had anybody from Kenya with the gravitas of Raila Odinga running for this position. I know you'll talk about Amina Mohamed,
Foreign Affairs.
But she did not have the gravitas of the Enigma. Maybe that's the reason why we didn't have all these conversations.
But everyone else who has run for this position is almost high equal in the position she held. Look at even Djibouti right now.
Nice.
Look at Madagascar. Look at Mauritius. All of them, even Mohamed Faki himself.
No,
Even
but there's a very high probability
There's
that
something
when Mohamed Faki
he
was
said.
running in his country, there was those octane celebrations.
I want you to understand. He's in that position Raila is seeking is actually below the Council of Ministers.
Yes, it is.
So
It
can you
is.
address that?
Yeah. We spoke about it earlier on. That is referred to in management as optical power. You remember what Museveni said, that this is not about career progression, that you want to go and further your CV, and then the next time you go to maybe United Nations. Again, you would recall a gentleman by the name the late Mishuki. Whichever docket he was given, he became very, very powerful. So that even if he was made a minister without portfolio, he would still be a powerful man. Even the late Simon Nyachai, very powerful, a powerful personality. Even Professor spoke about this, that he dismissed the pain and pleasure principle and said that Raila Odinga, because he's a forceful man, he can actually go to the UN and move needles, although I don't understand how he'll be able to influence those heads of states. But all said and done, in my view, we must support any Kenyan to the hills who is looking for an international role. So whether it means going to Mount Kenya or Mount Kilimanjaro, working on his CV. Actually, I understand that the document they prepared yesterday had typos, that brochure was not spelled right. So I'm wondering whether there was a challenge with
Video
political.
There's a question he asked you, you have not
Different
answered.
sound.
There's a question he asked you have not answered. Whether the government will survive to 2027. in the short.
Now, there's a gentleman by the name of Ambetso Paranya who indicated that if I offer my advice and they refuse to take it, I'm going to resign. But even before the ink dries, is that a very big homecoming ceremony in his village where he's invited the entire community to come and dance about his new appointments. And that is the question I posed to City Muga, given his pool of wisdom, whether or not this is about a disease. And you also said the majority of these people who've gone to this administration, they're fastening their pockets. So if there's an opportunity to fasten their pockets, I don't know whether a disagreement. But again, trying to look at that crystal ball may result in disaster.
Let me tell you
Okay.
something.
Go, City.
I marvel. Professor, first of all, thank you very much for those kind words. I actually come from the region that you spoke of so glowingly. There's only one proviso, though. If I look at the performance of the governors that region has had, that is Luo Nyanza, from the time we had devolution, I'm afraid
Yeah, it's in
their track
below
record,
par also.
it denotes the complete opposite of what you were saying. So I needed to put that right.
At the national level,
City
at
can
the
also
national
buttress that
level,
point.
Yes.
at the national level, people from Nyanza really perform. I mean, you have to look at Omboya, okay? You have to look at John Donde. John Donde came in here, even though he was like one term, and they changed everything. Moi was having a problem how to raise money. He told them you can force the banks you can raise the reserve in the bank, and then one is the central bank, you just go and take that money.
So Professor, you
You
suggesting...
understand? What I'm saying is that region has been able to produce very brilliant national leaders.
Okay.
But like all
But they
the
get
other
a crisis
areas,
at devolution.
yeah, in devolution, they are found just like us. I think
became
the
presidents.
people have succeeded in devolution. The Ukambani, Oparanya did extremely well
Yeah.
in Kakamega.
He did.
He
Despite
is
the matters
one of the
because-
best
Performing
performers.
governors.
Governors.
Nyong'o
Okay?
is doing well.
And then, of course, Nyong'o is doing very well also. Then you have the Ukambani governors, all the three of them. Whether it's Mutua or Ongilo or
Kivuda.
Professor Kibwana, they have done very well. So the problem here is these so-called highly educated regions that we expected to do very well, they fell into the trap of corruption.
Okay. However, City, there was a point you were trying to complete here, isn't it?
Yes, you see the question that Momokua refused to answer and asked me to answer. You see, to understand politics, you need to understand it as a unique subject that has unique indicators that you need to know before you can actually interpret and say, this is what is going to happen. The politics of this country has one huge benefit. It's fluid, very, very fluid. And the very thing you think cannot happen will happen.
Exactly.
If you look at Jomo Kenyatta and you look at the plethora of people who were in leadership then, Jomo Kenyatta was not necessarily the best choice for president. There were other people. And keep continuing. There may be reasons why he became president. There may be reasons why Moi became president. There may be reasons why Kibaki became president. But if you look at it, these were very unlikely. They're almost accidental presidents. But that is what you would say if you don't understand what you call the role of chance.
In fact, if you ask me, there's this theory I've held for some time
Yes.
that Jaramogi Oginga Odinga is the author of the Kenya's misery. Because Jaramogi was a proper African now. He was not one of those people with dubious background. You see, indeed, is something, a national hero, Jaramogi qualified to be a national hero.
Yes.
Because a national hero is somebody who does something so ordinary anyone would have done. He refused to take power so that Kenyatta can leave prison. If
Kenyatta, who was his senior.
yes. If Jaramogi had taken any power then, this country would have gone totally different trajectory, would have increased our capacity to love one another, because it was his love for the struggle, his love for the country, which made him say that we cannot, with our freedom fighters in prison, we need them out. And the person would, so he was not ingrained. Now, that would have been the equivalent of Nyerere, who would have created strong cultural foundation in the country that would now be able for us to plant economic roots into.
Right.
So I want to prophesy within the next 5 years, if we are not careful, Tanzania is going to bypass Kenya.
They've already bypassed
Because
us.
Tanzania, Nyerere was able to create that strong cultural foundation. So Jaramogi did us huge in disfavor. He
By not
shouldn't have
taking the reins
taken
of power.
then. That would have appointed Uhuru Kenyatta. Would also have appointed the other people who came later. He would have made us more Kenyan. He would have increased our capacity to love one another. Okay? Because you have to agree with me that we introduced extreme selfishness in management of public affairs.
Okay, I think we all need to try and placate Ken Mijungu this morning because nobody has answered his question.
Nobody.
What was the
Which question is?
The question is, will things as they currently stand make it to 2027? We have 1 minute
But I
to
answered
go.
it. The fluidity of our politics is such that the only change has been what we call the Gen Zs. All right? Now, the truth of the matter is this. Will the government allow them to register in the numbers that they have? And the numbers that we already have, which are overwhelming,
Yeah.
will they vote? And when they vote, do we know for certain how they will vote? So, to answer your question, the only change will be if the president makes a colossal boo-boo. If he makes a huge mistake
Yeah.
that everybody can look at and can say, my goodness, no, this one we can't live, that is when the government will not survive.
Otherwise, things will remain as they are.
Yes.
Yeah, probability is 100%.
You know, we are very conservative people. So,
Yeah.
as a people, we are very conservative.
True.
We don't like to upset the
Don't like
apple
making
cart.
too much
No, we
noise.
don't.
We don't like
your-
to
like your-
upset the apple cart.
like your
We
brother
like
across the
to
pond.
be peaceful in our poverty.
Don't like to topple the apple cart. The next couple of months will be very interesting. I mean, our conversation has revolved around what happens with Raila Odinga and his bid for the AUC chairmanship, as well as, you know, seeing what happens now with local politics and how things will, if change, metamorphosize over the next couple of months, if they do, without running away from the fact that the question remains for the majority of people in the country who are asking for accountability, who are asking for proper management, who are asking for true governance, and who are asking for transparency. That issue has not been dealt with. You can put up as many people as you want for the AUC chairmanship, but what remains at home, I think, really matters. It really matters. You have 10 seconds to say that thing you want to say, Mokua.
Yes, I just want to buttress the point that we've been talking about zero-based budgeting. If we adopt it, it would address 50% of the concerns you are raising.
Okay.
Zero-based budgeting.
It's got to be led by somebody, though, and the question is, who is that somebody?
well, Mr. Somebody is at
president
the National Treasury.
Well,
now.
let's see if that's going to happen, shouldn't we? Dismas Makua, a political analyst, as well as Professor Gitile Naituli as a governance analyst, have been our guest this hour. Last 2 hours, actually.
Yes.
Thanks for being awesome sports and being here this morning in Kenya's biggest conversation. You've occupied the hot seats well. We'll
Thank
talk.
you. You gave us water to...
Ken, promise the people again tomorrow. See you tomorrow.
I'm working tonight.
See you tomorrow.
I'm working tonight, and I have a guest. I'm hosting Professor Wajakoya tonight.
So see you tomorrow morning.
I'll try.
See you tomorrow morning.
I'll try to wake up.
Good morning, everybody. It's 10 a.m.
Spice up your life.